I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. In my opinion, this is the most important handcuff in all of fantasy football. Has massive opportunities to win your leagues. If the guy in front of him goes down, he will win your league. If the guy in front of him goes down, that is not a single one of the players I'm bringing you in today's video are being drafted inside the top 110 picks in fantasy football drafts this year. However, all of them could have significant fantasy value this year. The average ADP of the 10 players I'm bringing you today is 182, meaning on average in a 12-man league, these guys are going in the 16th round or later on average. Like, they're all over the board, but if you average them out. Basically what I'm saying is I'm diving deep into my bag for you guys today. The ADP that we sourced today is from ESPN, Sleeper, CBS, and NFL.com. All right, the first player that I think is a hidden gem is Andre Yoshivas. Now, just call the guy Yoshi, all right? That's how you say his last name, Yoshivas. We call him Yoshi. The Bengals have officially found their Tyler Boyd replacement. Yoshi will play in the slot in their first preseason game. The Bengals confirmed that after many reports as well, that they viewed him as a starter because Yoshi played more snaps with the starters for the Bengals than any other wide receiver over the weekend. And there's heavy indications that the Cincinnati team is going to be throwing the ball a ton in 2024. Why? Well, they let go of their franchise running back in Joe Mixon. They traded him away. And in the last 2 years, even with the franchise running back, they were top 10 in passing attempts per game in both years. If you look at Tyler Boyd's production in the Burrow Chase era, that slot role in that time, over the last 3 years, 92 targets and 10.1 PPR points per game per season. So you have a young player who's rising, a budding star, in a offense that's going to throw the ball a lot. He is a true steal, especially if one of those wide receivers goes down with an injury. All right, the second player, I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. In my opinion, this is the most important handcuff in all of fantasy football. Has massive opportunities to win your leagues. If the guy in front of him goes down, he will win your league. If the guy in front of him goes down, that is Blake Corum. All right, Blake Corum, easily my number one handcuff in fantasy. To be clear, I don't anticipate Kyren losing a ton of work, okay? I'm not anti-Kyren Williams. However, history shows us that Sean McVay's running back rooms have been a revolving door. McVay hasn't had a running back with back-to-back 1,000-yard rushing seasons since the 2017-2018 seasons. He also hasn't had a running back repeat as a team's leading rusher since 2019. And more importantly, we don't know yet if Kyren's body can hold up over a 17-game season as his team starter. I mean, he's already had significant injury history in the NFL. He's only been in the NFL for 2 years, guys, and this is what he's gone through. In 2022, a broken foot at OTAs. In 2022, a high ankle sprain in week 1. In 2023, a hip injury in week 4. In week 6 last year, a high ankle sprain. And in the playoffs last game versus Detroit, he broke his hand. He has missed 12 out of 34 regular season games, 35% of his games in the past 2 seasons due to injury. And Injury Shark's database gives Kyren an 88.7% chance of injury. That's the 4th highest mark in their database amongst running backs, and 3.48 projected missed games this year, which is the highest amount of projected missed games they gave to any running back in 2024. However, the Rams offense is lethal for fantasy football. So if Kyren goes down, Blake Corum is going to be a superstar. Injury Shark noted this, that McVay has had a top 2 running back in fantasy points per game in 3 out of the last 7 seasons and has produced a top 21 running back in fantasy in 5 out of the last 7 seasons. So let's get on the same page. I'm not telling you to avoid Kyren Williams. I am telling you that even if you draft Kyren Williams or you don't, target Blake Corum, and definitely if you draft Kyren Williams, Blake Corum has to be on your roster. Okay, the third player that I think is a huge deal, like I'm very passionate about this one, is Khalil Shakira, oh baby, when you talk like that. The Bills have the second most vacated targets in the NFL this year. 317 sweet vacated targets up for grabs because Stephon Diggs left this team and Gabe Davis left this team with a huge hole in the receiving game. 54.7% of their target shares up for grabs and 13 targets inside the 10-yard line. And unlike Keon Coleman, unlike Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir already has inbuilt chemistry with real games with Josh Allen. We saw Shakir build momentum last year when Joe Brady became this team's offensive coordinator from week 11 onwards. And from week 11 onwards, his targets go up, his receptions, his receiving yards skyrocket, his points per game almost double. And then in the NFL playoffs, we saw Shakir score a receiving touchdown in both of their playoff games, one versus Pittsburgh and the other versus Kansas City. And here's an interesting note after the first week of preseason. Shakir's usage was the most interesting as he was an immediate starter with Allen. And in 12 personnel, no less. 12 personnel meaning 2 wide receiver sets. That's important, as this team's primary slot receiver working into 2 receiver sets is essential for Shakir to take the next step. So they also shut him down before any other wide receiver, indicating that maybe he's the most important guy to them. Something's brewing in Buffalo, and Shakir is a fantastic pick in late rounds. All right. Number 4, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboy running backs, Rico Dowdle and Zeke Elliott. This is very simple. Whoever you can get cheaper in your drafts, take them. Why? This is not sexy, but this is just a reliable pick right here. This is one of the best offenses in the entire NFL. In 2023, the Cowboys were top 5 in team points per game, in offensive plays per game, in total yards per game, in team touchdowns per game. The only place they weren't top 5 really was rushing touchdowns per game. That's what was missing from this offense the entire year was red zone efficiency, was punching it in on the goal line, converting inside the 10-yard line, inside the 5-yard line. If you look at Tony Pollard's goal line success, carries inside the 5-yard line. He had the 7th most carries inside the 5 with 16. He only scored 2 rushing touchdowns with those carries. 12.5% conversion rate. Tony just could not get the job done. Meanwhile, Zeke, with very few attempts on the worst offense in the NFL last year with the Patriots, converted at a 40% clip. Zeke had the same amount of touchdowns inside the 5-yard line as Tony Pollard, and he had 9 less opportunities in the same area. And the last time Zeke was a Cowboy, he was the guy for this team on the goal line. He was second in attempts inside the 5-yard line for any running back in the NFL, and he converted at a 47% rate. They know they can pass the ball all over the field. They just need someone who can punch the ball in on the goal line. Rico Dowdle, Zeke Elliott, both such affordable options that I'm willing to take a shot on this year. Okay, did you miss out on one of the top tight end names in fantasy this year, and you're looking to punt the position? Well, I've got the late round steal for you. That is Noah Fant. He is your man. New regime. All right, in Seattle, the new regime decided they want to bring him back on a 2-year, $21 million contract. New regime decided, let's get rid of all of his competition, right? So Colby Parkinson is now a Ram. Will Disley is now a Charger, which means that we will likely see Noah Fant on the field much more. Last year, there was a very heavy distribution of the snaps. You can see Noah Fant led the way, but there were so many snaps gobbled up by Colby and Will Disley. And the new regime has publicly stated that they want to throw the ball much, much more. Specifically, Ryan Grubb, this team's new offensive coordinator. He was the offensive coordinator for the Washington Huskies last year. And in his collegiate days, he threw the ball all over the field. This is where the Washington Huskies offense ranked amongst 130 plus Power 5 schools. First in passing yards per game, 12th in passing attempts per game, and 9th in total touchdowns per game. Noah Fant is a sleeping giant if you're going to take like a late round pick, right? Josh Palmer is the next name we're going to talk about. I love all of the Charger wide receivers this year outside of Quentin, no disrespect. I love Ladd McConkey. That is my guy. Like literally that is a my guy if you watched the My Guys video on the channel recently. And that's who I would bet on being the team's wide receiver 1 is Ladd McConkey. However, based on the ADP for these 2 wide receivers, I do think Palmer is probably an even better value in fantasy drafts this year. If you look at where Ladd McConkey and Josh Palmer rank on all these different platforms, Palmer's consistently in the 60s, Ladd is consistently in the 40s, and last year, when Keenan Allen went down with an injury, people thought Quentin Johnston was going to step in and fill those shoes. He did not. He was horrible, but Josh Palmer did step in and fill those shoes big time. You can see Palmer splits with Keenan Allen and without Keenan Allen in his career. Without Keenan Allen, he's averaging about 13 points per game. He's got chemistry with Herbert that's already built in. He's going to cost you nothing. He's on a good offense, an offense that will throw the ball more than people talk about. I mean, Jim Harbaugh has had a top 27 or better fantasy wide receiver every single year he's coached in the NFL. And he even had a top 5 tight end finish as well. All right, the 7th player that is a hidden gem is Chuba Hubbard. Now, we love Jonathan Brooks on this channel. We also love Chuba Hubbard. For some reason, people feel like you got to choose one or the other. Draft them both. They're both, in my opinion, very good values this year. Jonathan Brooks is the one to own the second half of the season. He's the young, very talented draft pick. However, he is coming off an ACL tear. So Carolina should be cautious with Jonathan Brooks. They spent a second round pick on him. He's 20 years old. He's a foundational piece of their offense. And recent reports have told us that he will not play until about weeks 3 or 4 in the NFL season. But Dave Canales has made it very clear that this will be a run-focused offense. He said, in a bunch of quotes this offseason, so it's something I'm going to be stubborn about. It's something that I'm going to be committed to when referring to the run game. And we've already seen Chuba Hubbard as a decent starter for this team, and it's been decent for fantasy football. From week 6 onwards, he beat out Miles Sanders in Carolina. He averaged over 19 touches per game. He was an RB19 from week 16 onwards, averaging 12.5 PPR points per game. I don't want Chuba for the entire season, but if you're going 0 RB, I think he's one of the best targets. All right, how about Gabe Davis? I believe we should be taking Gabe Davis far more seriously in fantasy football this year. This team showed us over the weekend that they do not intend to use Christian Kirk in 12 personnel or 2 wide receiver sets. The Jags starters played 9 total snaps in the first preseason game. Kirk was outsnapped by rookie Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis 9-7. He also ran fewer routes in the pair at 5-4. Again, in my opinion, they're showing us that in 2 wide receiver sets, Christian Kirk is not who they prefer to be out there on the field. Now, keep in mind, guys, they wanted to do this last year as well. Unfortunately, Zay Jones suffered an injury early in the season, and that kind of derailed their plans, but they have been wanting to get Christian Kirk off the field in 2 wide receiver sets for a hot minute right now. And this is important because Gabe Davis is going to be on the field more, meaning there will be more opportunities to be targeted. And just be on the targets, let's talk about the quality of targets he might see in Jacksonville. Gabe Davis, his first week with Jacksonville, his first target was a 20-yard catch over the middle of the field. His second target was a quick out route to the sideline for 6 yards. Why is this important? A bunch of jibber jabbish. This is important because it shows that the Jags are going to use Gabe Davis in a way that the Bills did not. In Buffalo, you could never start Gabe Davis. He was just consistently boom bust because he was primarily viewed as a deep threat in their offense, that home run hitter. In the last 2 seasons, in Buffalo, Gabe was top 10 in deep target percentage amongst wide receivers who had at least 10 deep targets, right? And if the Jags plan on using him in every formation, if they plan on using him, giving him layup targets, he could end up being a steal at ADP. All right, the 9th player we're talking about that's a steal at ADP is Khalil Herbert. The Bears' backfield in week 1 was a little strange, okay? We did see Herbert outsnap Swift heavily, 14-2. He ran more routes. He had more carries on the ground. Now, I tried to explain this in my last video that I'm not saying DeAndre Swift is a bad pick. I'm not saying we should panic on DeAndre Swift. What I am trying to tell you guys is Khalil Herbert's likely going to be a bigger part of this offense than anybody would want to admit. So at minimum, a young offense that could be very exciting. You can get him very cheap. Khalil Herbert is your mystery box. He's one of the last picks that you can make in fantasy football drafts. And he's been very good, very efficient over his career. So Khalil Herbert, someone I'm targeting. And the last name is Justin Fields. This is specifically for Superflex formats, all right? You're not going to draft Justin Fields in a 1-quarterback league, just being honest with you. But in Superflex formats, he's a very good pick if you don't smash quarterbacks early. And there is a serious camp battle happening in Pittsburgh. Originally, it looked like Russell Wilson was a lock to be this team's starter, but then Russell suffered an injury, which opened up a pathway for Justin Fields to be this team's guy, if you will. And unfortunately for Russell Wilson, this team loves Justin Fields. All the players love him. The coaches speak highly of him. Here's what we know about Justin Fields, okay? He is a completely average NFL quarterback. However, he is a superstar for fantasy football if he starts in the NFL. He has been a top 10 or top 5 fantasy quarterback in points per game in the last 2 seasons combined. So Justin Fields, a great, late round pick because if he becomes a starter, he's going to be a must start in Superflex leagues every single year, and you can get him super, super cheap. So what do you guys think of the list? I'm trying to help you find those hidden gems, the needle in the haystack. I hope it's helpful. Do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to show some love, and if you want to get some great content this season. Last thing I'll say is if you want some consistent rankings, I've got my cheat sheet over on the Flock Fantasy site. It's got my sleepers, my guys, fades, boom bust players, and you can get access to that by becoming a Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND. Check out the pinned comment if you'd like to support the show, if you'd like to get consistent rankings that update every single week. I appreciate you guys. Go kill your drafts, and I'll talk to you soon. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.